Hello everybody. I tried to learn myself how to use the website prezi.com this weekend, and I made a presentation and I had way too much fun with it. So it took me a lot of time, and then I realized I don't have any place to actually give the presentation. So I figured, why not YouTube? So as you can see by the giant letters on the screen, it's going to be about the European Union and its history of integration, because this year it's 50 years since the first EU treaty, and I'm excited about stuff like that. So, let's go. The idea of European integration started probably somewhere during the war, because basically 2 world wars in 30 years creates a lot of destruction. It costs a lot of money, just lots of people died, terrible things happened, and people were very concerned after World War II how they could prevent it. And I think the main thing, the main conclusion that many people took was that after World War One, Germany was very severely punished. They had to give lots of money to other countries, which really created lots of instability in their own economy, really high unemployment, hyperinflation, and that has been directly linked to the rise of the Nazi Party. So that was definitely something they wanted to do different this time. Also, the U.S. was much more involved, and they and others basically agreed that the key to a peaceful Europe was Franco-German reconciliation, because France and Germany are the two big countries on the European continent, and basically until World War II they have been opposed in every war ever. So it was definitely the place to start. The US kind of told France to do something with that, and that led to the Schuman Declaration. Despite his name, Schuman was actually French. He was the French foreign minister at the time. And his secretary, Jean Monnet, was the real visionary here. And they came up with a plan in which they put the coal and steel industries of both countries under one higher authority. And they chose those two industries because these were vital in supporting a war to make weapons, ammunition, fuel, and army, just everything you needed it for. And if they could control that together, it would create an interdependence and therefore sort of impossibility of war, because you would also harm yourself even more than wars would already harm yourself before that. This was the very practical side of it. The ideas behind it were much bigger. If you read the Schuman Declaration, it was very focused on integration, community, solidarity. They really had a vision about Europe coming together. However, this first step, after lots of negotiations, led to the European Coal and Steel Community, nicely depicted here, becoming a European thing. And there were 6 members. There were France, Germany, Italy also, and the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. The most special thing about this is that this higher authority that these industries were placed under had a legal personality, which means that at some points they could make decisions without consulting the member states. They were more important and had the last say. And that was pretty unique at the time. Some countries went even further than just that. Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg together, more easily called the Benelux, created a customs union, which meant that they could import-export to each other as much as possible, free trade basically, no tariffs, no quantitative restrictions, and also free movement of people, capital, and services. And that basically doubled trade. So other countries were basically like, want me some of that. So that created a political climate that was ready for further integration, which led to the European communities. Not all of the countries, like which flags you see, were a member of it at the time, but it is the same. You had the economic community, which basically created a single market or a common market, so free trade. And you had Euratom, which was about energy, but didn't really work out. And you had the coal and steel community. And together they were the European communities. And I wanted to say something else, but I can't think, so we're moving on. This worked really well, created lots of excess trade. The UK didn't join because they thought they were too important, but then regretted their leader, so they joined in 1973. However, before the UK even joined, it became a little less fancy to integrate. In the first picture here, you see a guy that is supposed to be Charles de Gaulle, the president of France at that time, take away part of the European communities. It was because he thought the treaty established that from 1965 there would be majority voting instead of unanimity. So basically, decisions could be made without France's approval, and he really disagreed with that. So instead of following the rules, because the treaty was already signed, he chose a political option, and he pulled out all his civil servants of the European communities, and this is called the empty chair crisis. Legally, it didn't change anything because an absent vote didn't count, so the rest of the countries could have just continued with it. But France was the most important country of this community, so to do it without them just politically really wouldn't work. And this led to a compromise called the Luxembourg Compromise because, well, let's guess, it was created in Luxembourg, and it said that it would keep the majority voting. However, as soon as a country stated that one issue was of vital interest to them, they would not vote, and they would try to reach consensus, and if that didn't happen, nothing would happen. And, I don't know, interestingly enough, countries developed a lot of vital interest during those years. Integration sort of halted until, on the other picture, you see the logo of the European Court of Justice. The court sort of developed a policy of furthering integration, and technically they couldn't really do that because they didn't make laws, they just interpreted them. But some of their interpretations changed so much and made European law so important for everybody that actually a lot of things happened during the 70s. One of these things is called direct effect. It created rights for every European. And this is something I find incredibly interesting, so I might actually make a video about that at some later point. However, in the end, halfway through the 80s, this guy became president of the European Commission. Jacques Delors is his name, and he basically realized that this common market that was created in 1958 didn't really work yet. There were lots of different rules, for example, safety regulations, health regulations, which make trade between countries still pretty difficult and not very open at all. And they started to change that, and one of the treaties that tried to do that was the Single European Act, which entered into force in 1986 or 87, I'm not really sure. This is also the first time they talk about a common currency, for example. They had lots of proposals from businesses that were made into legislation and really tried to finally create a true single market, and that was finalized in the next treaty, the Treaty of the European Union. This is also known as the Maastricht Treaty. Yeah, Maastricht is my hometown, so that's exciting. This is the most famous European treaty, I would say, and it created what is known as the three-pillar structure of the European Union. As you can see, as by these really large pillars on the screen, there were three of them. The first one was basically everything that existed up to now, so the European communities part. This was supranationalism. That means that there is an institution above nations that can make the decisions, and this is where the single market policies went into monetary policies, competition, agriculture, really stuff that they have been doing for quite a while. The other two pillars were new. The second pillar was common foreign and security policy, and the third one, justice and home affairs. And these were intergovernmental. That means that it's between governments, so governments still make the most important decisions. That's because these policies are much more sensitive and much more to the core of what makes a country, so they don't really want to give power to somebody else to make those decisions. This involves the military, for example, and justice and home affairs includes like police, immigration, but also judiciary cooperation. But they still recognized that they needed to do something for things to be effective. After that, some things were happening in, the vicinity of Europe, being the end of the Cold War, which led to a lot of other considerations, mainly the fact that a lot of countries that were under Soviet influence now start to look more towards Europe again for development help, but also sort of rekindle old ties because they have been European countries for, well, ever, basically. So it means that all of these countries will probably join the European at some point, and that means that there had to be some reforms. Well, There are basically two treaties, the Treaty of Amsterdam and the Treaty of Nice. Both of these treaties are considered to be a bit of a failure. They changed some things. For example, immigration became part of the first pillar because if you have open borders, you kind of need a common immigration policy, and some other things changed, but they didn't change anything institution-wise to make the EU ready for so many more members. But despite of that, the euro was so introduced in 2002. In 2004, 10 countries joined the European Union. You can see here Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Malta, and Cyprus are now European members, and that changed a lot. All of a sudden there were 25 member states, and then in 2007 Romania and Bulgaria joined, and in 2013 Croatia will join. So the union is still growing. That led, at some point, things in the institution had to change, and they also wanted to bring Europe closer to its citizens and not let it be such a distant project. That's when the European Constitution was thought of. It was a treaty to change things that still need to be changed because Amsterdam and Nice were not a very big success. But they decided to call it a constitution because somebody thought that people would understand what that was. However, in the Netherlands and France, there were referendums about this treaty, and both of those countries voted against it. There's not really one reason why. A lot of people voted against it because of national reasons, like they didn't like their government. Other people just plain out stated that they had no idea what it was, why it was necessary, what was in it, and therefore they voted no. But it was some sort of sign that this bringing it closer to the citizen really led to a feeling of unease. So it was all these symbolisms like the flag, the anthem, they were not in the treaty anymore, but all of the rest basically stayed, and after a very nice euphemism, the period of reflection, the Treaty of Lisbon was created. Institution-wise, a lot changed. I think I'm also going to do a separate video about European institutions, but now these three people are kind of important. The middle guy is Barroso, the President of the Commission, and the left guy is Van Rompuy, which is the President of the European Council. And the woman is Mrs. Ashton, and she is the High Representative for Foreign Policy, Foreign Security thing. I'm not exactly sure what her title is, but basically they are all supposed to represent the EU and foreign things, and it's very confusing even for me still, and I'm studying this thing. So I'm going to try to break it down in another video. Still things are happening. There is such a thing as a crisis at the moment, which is not really good, and the EU thinks the solution is more integration. They have a really nice YouTube clip. You can see here they basically tried to create a fiscal union, a banking union, and an economic union. A lot of people disagree with that because they think more integration is not the solution, or even less integration could be the solution, because you might have noticed if you watch the news there are some tensions between countries at the moment. So what the future will bring, who knows? But personally I think integration is kind of the only way to go. But yeah, we'll see. I know over a lot of things. Whoa, what's happening? Because I don't have a lot of time to do this, or I don't want to take a lot of time because it makes this very long. If you have any questions, please let me know. And if you, I don't know, if you're interested, I will make some more videos about Europe in the future. I know my promises haven't been always kept on this front, so I'm not really sure how long it will take, but I will let you know. I will see you next time, and I will be in the screen again, so it might be a bit less awkward. Bye!